Revealed, the incredible moment a CEO misdialed and found hope in a boy's touching plea for help. Daniel had it all. A booming tech startup, a sleek home in a posh Silicon Valley suburb, and a beautiful wife with 2 kids who looked like they stepped out of a magazine. But as he sat in his glass-walled office, surrounded by lofty ambitions and the flickering glow of his screens, a nagging ache gripped his heart. The hustle and bustle of the corporate world felt like a cage, with every chirping email a chain locking him further away from home and family. Back-to-back meetings had drained him, and as the clock ticked down the hours, he sighed, dialing his assistant's number. But something went wrong. A wrong digit, a twist of fate, and instead of connecting with Emily, he found himself on the line with a breathless young boy. "Hello?" came a hesitant voice. "Who is this?" This is Daniel," he replied, perplexed. "Daniel? Hey, I'm Jake." "You're not my mom," the boy laughed lightly, but there was a tremor beneath it that struck Daniel. The carefree sound of childhood clashed with an undercurrent of worry. "Sorry, Jake. I must be misdialed," Daniel said, ready to disconnect. But something held him back. "Wait. Can you help me?" "I really need someone," Jake blurted out. His voice dropped to a whisper, thick with urgency and fear. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" he asked, genuinely curious. "My mom, she's sick. She can't work, and we don't have anything to eat." Jake's voice broke, and for a moment, the polished glass walls of Daniel's office faded away. Instead, he found himself listening to a boy who was desperately trying to hold tears at bay. The background noise of his corporate life blurred into silence. "I take care of her," Jake continued, determination mixed with heartbreak evident in every word. "But it's hard. I just want to know someone cares." Daniel felt his chest tighten. His mind swirled with thoughts of his own kids, giggling in their cozy home filled with love and laughter, an abundance Jake could only dream of. The disparity slammed into him, and his mind raced, processing the uncomfortable truth of his privileged life on the other side of the tracks, so close yet so far away. Before they could hang up, Jake shared a tiny flicker of hope, his dreams unfurling like fragile petals. "I want to be an engineer. So maybe one day I can help people like my mom." "Listen, Jake," the word struggled to form in Daniel's mouth, suddenly heavy with responsibility. I care." As anxiety buzzed in the corners of Daniel's mind, he understood this call was not just a momentary blip, it felt like a wake-up call. What had he sacrificed in pursuit of success? "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The moment hung heavy in the air as Jake's voice lingered in Daniel's thoughts. He felt a surge of energy, an urge to make change. The divide of their worlds no longer felt like a barrier, but rather a call to bridge the gap, a chance to act. The clock continued its relentless tick, but Daniel stood at a crossroads. Would he retreat back to his comfortable life? Or would he seize this moment of awakening and be the change he had long overlooked? "Jake," he began hesitantly, "I think I want to help you." But before he could utter another word, the weight of the decision began to settle around him, leaving a lingering question: was he ready to step into a world that needed him more than the one that had always served him well? As Daniel sat still, a wave of conflicting emotions washed over him. The serene office buzzed with the sound of email notifications. But here he was, grappling with a child's plea echoing in his mind. How could his seemingly monumental issues compare to Jake's reality? "Really? You'll help me?" The disbelief in Jake's voice was palpable. It sent shivers down Daniel's spine. He dragged a hand through his hair, battling the turmoil within. What did help look like? How could he, someone who had built his world on pixels and code, penetrate the raw reality that lay before him? Yes, I will, Daniel confirmed, his own voice sounding stronger than he felt. Tell me what you need. Jake hesitated for just a moment, and with that pause, Daniel caught a glimpse of the gravity of the situation. A boy relying on him. A sick mother unable to provide. This wasn't just charity, this was connection, humanity stripped bare. We need food and I don't know if I can pay the bills anymore, Jake said, the words rushed and panicked. We live in a little place downtown, but I just want my mom to get better. The urgency in his voice tightened Daniel's heart. I'll take care of it, Daniel replied, worry cracking through his facade of calm. I can come by. I can bring groceries, anything you need. Silence stretched out, and Daniel could almost hear the boy's heartbeat running wild. The whispers of hope swirled through its stillness, each breath heavier than the last. Really? You'll come? Jake said, pure astonishment layered over a faint excitement. Of course, I'll be there. There was no turning back now. This was a pivotal moment, not just for Jake, but for Daniel. This was the chance to step out of his glassbox existence. After they exchanged details, Daniel hung up, the dial tone ringing against his ear like a gunshot signaling the start of a race. He blinked, realizing that the path he was about to take would pull him into corners of life he hadn't faced in years, places of struggle, resilience, and perhaps the most important of all, compassion. That he paced around his office, feeling an odd, exhilarating mix of fear and giddiness. There it was, the thrill of purpose. But along with that, the weight of obligation pressed against him. What about his own family? Would they understand? Would they even agree? As he grabbed his keys and headed for the door, a sense of trepidation gnawed at him. The city wasn't just a sprawling dream of lights and technology, it held stories simmering beneath the surface. He had been so fixated on innovation and profit that the very real struggles of people like Jake faded into a background blur. The car ride felt endless, a rush of traffic blending with Daniel's swirling thoughts. What would he say to Jake? What if he couldn't help? The doubts whispered at the edges of his mind, threatening to derail him. But Jake needed him. That was a reality he could no longer ignore. Arriving at the rundown building that felt worlds away from his suburban life, he parked and took a deep breath. The sunny Californian sky shone above, but there was an impending storm brewing within him. With each step toward the door, he could feel the gravity of his decision bearing down on him. Was he truly ready to face the truth of what lay ahead? The door cracked open, and as he stepped into the shadows of the unfamiliar world, a flicker of movement caught his eye. Jake stood at the end of the narrow hall, his bright eyes tinged with cautious hope. Daniel? The boy called, his voice a thread pulling Daniel deeper into the moment. Yeah, Jake, it's me, I'm here. In that instant, Daniel understood he was no longer just a CEO with numbers in his head. He was a lifeline for this young boy who greeted him with both vulnerability and optimism, two precious commodities in a world so often plagued by despair. What unfolded next would change the course of both their lives in ways neither could foresee. As Daniel stepped forward, the question loomed larger: could he really make a lasting impact in a place where hope was often eclipsed by hardship? Daniel's heart raced as he stepped further into the small apartment, the air thick with the scent of something simmering on the stove, a fleeting hint of comfort amid the faint odor of neglect. The cramped space held the weight of countless untold stories, a canvas of struggle painted in muted colors. Jake's eyes sparkled in the dim light, yet the tension was palpable. Thank you for coming, Daniel. I didn't know if you would actually show up. There was disbelief still etched in his features, but a flicker of trust began to light up his gaze. I told you I would, Daniel replied, forcing his tone to remain steady. He glanced around the room and felt his throat tighten. The peeling wallpaper, the mismatched furniture, all symbols of a life once vibrant, now dulled by tribulations. So, where do you keep the groceries? Jake's expression shifted to one of concern. I don't really have a place for them. Can we just take them to the kitchen? As they moved to the kitchenette, Daniel set down the bags filled with food and essential supplies he'd bought on impulse, driven by a mix of desperation and determination. He opened the first bag, revealing brightly colored cereals and familiar snacks. For a moment, he couldn't help but smile. But Jake frowned, looking at the items as if they were foreign objects. Is this enough? Jake asked, his voice trembling slightly. Yeah, it's just the beginning. Let us make sure your mom has enough to eat. Jake nodded but remained silent, his brow furrowed. Where is she? Daniel ventured, the intimacy of the situation pressing heavily on him. In the bedroom, Jake whispered, signaling Daniel to follow him. Trepidation gripped Daniel's heart as they approached the closed door. It felt like they were standing on the edge of an abyss one he wasn't certain he was ready to confront. Can I open it? Jake asked, his voice small. Of course. Just let me know if you need me there. With a deep breath, Jake twisted the doorknob and pushed the door open. The room was dim, with only a small window filtering in feeble sunlight. On the bed lay a woman, her frail frame wrapped in a thin blanket, breathing unevenly. Mom, Jake nudged gently, fear lacing his voice. Hey, sweetheart, the woman's voice was weak, yet filled with warmth. Her gaze fell on Jake before drifting toward Daniel. Who is this? This is Daniel. He's here to help us, Jake stammered, his confidence wavering under the weight of expectation. Help? Oh, darling. She struggled to sit up, and Daniel rushed to assist her, easing her into a more comfortable position. Hi, Mrs. Hargrove, Daniel said gently. I brought some food and I'm here to help however I can, he added, a lump forming in his throat. Her eyes flickered with recognition, then dimmed a bit, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Thank you. We're in a tough spot right now. Daniel nodded, the gravity of the moment sinking in. The stark reality of the struggle hit him harder than a punch to the gut. This was not just a floundering business deal or a failed product launch, this was a battle for survival, for hope. Mom? Jake's voice faltered, drawing her attention back. Can Daniel help you feel better? A small smile creased her lips, but it quickly faded as she coughed weakly. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered. I wish I could promise you that I will. In that moment, Daniel felt a ripple of urgency. He had come here with groceries, with good intentions. But the real challenge was clear: how could he provide not just food, but hope? The kind that could heal internal wounds far deeper than hunger. Look, whatever support you need, I'll do my best, Daniel announced, his determination surfacing once again. I'm not leaving you both, not now. The air in the room shifted, and for the first time, hope appeared toward a horizon Daniel hadn't seen before. But then Jake's next words pierced through the fragile atmosphere surrounding them. What if you can't fix everything? What if there's no way out? Daniel's heart sank, caught in the web of Jake's anxious question. He didn't have the answer. But realizing the weight of those unasked questions flickered behind Jake's big, innocent eyes, a silent plea for resolution sent another shudder through him. The quiet urgency echoed in the room, a deep call for connection. Could he really find a way to fill the void of hope? Would they trust him to be their bridge out of despair? As he stood between the two of them, the room silent except for the shallow breaths of Jake's mother, Daniel knew that their journey together had only just begun, and he was terrified of where it might lead them all. The faint sunlight filtering through the tattered curtains threw a soft glow over the room. It was as if the light itself wanted to reach out, to touch the despair that hung in the air. Daniel felt the heaviness settle deeper inside him. The doorknob felt cold against his palm, an unyielding reminder of their circumstances. Jake's mother sank back into the pillows, her face a mask of exhaustion. In that moment, Daniel wished so desperately to turn back time, to gather all the pain in this room and erase it like chalk dust from a blackboard. He cleared his throat, desperate for a way to bridge the silence. "Do you want some water?" he asked, trying for a normal conversation, something that would lighten the atmosphere just a fraction. "Just a sip, please," she replied, her voice shaky but appreciative. While Daniel poured water into a chipped glass, he couldn't shake the feeling of being an intruder. This wasn't just an obligation, it was a window into their life, a life fraught with difficulties he had only glimpsed in stories. As he handed her the glass, he caught a glimpse of Jake, who stood watching, a mix of worry and hope written all over his young face. "You got this, Mom," Jake encouraged softly, his small hands clenched into fists by his side. "Daniel is gonna help us." With every smile Jake tried to muster, Daniel could see the cracks in his armor. How brave he was, yet how terrified. It reminded him of his own childhood, how he would find comfort in the simplest gestures, a touch, a kind word. "Do you like any particular foods?" Daniel asked Jake, leaning into him a little, as if to dispel the weight of the moment. "Maybe I can bring something different next time." "I just want her to be okay," Jake whispered, the words escaping as if he had been holding them back for too long. It struck Daniel straight in the heart. They weren't just in need of food, they were desperate for reassurance, for any semblance of normalcy. He needed to show them that caring wasn't limited to just physical needs, it ran deeper than that. "I know this is tough," Daniel said, turning his attention back to Mrs. Hargrove. "But I promise, I'll do everything I can to help you feel better. You're not alone in this." She looked at him, curiosity mingling with hope. "Do you really mean that?" "Yes," Daniel affirmed, his voice firm even as doubt flickered within him. "We'll tackle this together." The faintest smile broke across her face, sending a wave of relief washing over him. If he could just hold on to that spark of warmth, perhaps it could grow. As Daniel settled onto the edge of the bed, he felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him, but he pushed it aside. "But let us start with something small. How about Jake and I cook dinner together?" Jake perked up, an involuntary twinkle igniting in his eyes. "Can we make spaghetti?" "Absolutely," Daniel exclaimed with a broad grin. "And I'll bring the ingredients next time. We'll have an Italian night." Laughter bubbled up within the room, shattering the heaviness, if only for a moment. Jake giggled, and the sound resonated like music, unfurling in the stale air like a promise. For that short period, they were more than just people trapped in a cycle of struggle. They were a family, building small victories in the shadows of despair, but hope is a fragile thing, and just as quickly as it ignited, a reality check soon followed. What if it doesn't work out? Jake's voice cut sharply through the moment like a knife. Daniel's heart dropped as he faced that question head-on. There were no guarantees in life, and he could feel the trembling beneath Jake's brave facade. His gaze shifted to Mrs. Hargrove, who looked apprehensive, caught in the tension of unspoken fears. "Sometimes it's about trying, Jake," Daniel said softly, meeting his gaze straight on. "Every meal we share, every laugh we have. It's about building what we can, step by step. And while there's no way of knowing what tomorrow holds, we have today." Just then, the phone rang loudly, shaking loose the fragile airspace they had created. Jake's eyes darted toward the sound, and Daniel's heart picked up pace. That call could change everything. What if it's bad news? Jake asked, his innocence prickling against the raw anxiety in the room. "I guess we'll just have to wait and see," Daniel replied, swallowing hard. As they turned toward the noise, the air buzzed with a potential that felt electric, charged with uncertainty. Whatever happened next could reshape their fragile thread of hope, and he had to be ready to confront it. Daniel held tightly to the belief that they could muster the strength of a family, a community. But little did he know, the call was about to crack open doors he never expected, a pathway not just to survival, but change itself. Would they step through together, or would doubt consume them once more? The phone rang again, cutting through the stale air. Daniel could feel the tension wrapping around them tighter, like a vice threatening to crush their fragile hopes. He exchanged a worried glance with Mrs. Hargrove, whose brow furrowed as she strained to hear the muffled voice on the other end. "Hello?" she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel held his breath, trying to read her expression as it shifted: confusion, apprehension, then a flicker of something he couldn't quite place. Jake's little fists were clenched even tighter now, as if he could will his mom to conjure good news with sheer determination. "We will try to keep you updated," Mrs. Hargrove replied, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an anchor in the storm. "Thank you." The call ended abruptly as she lowered the phone, feeling suddenly very small. "It was the hospital," she said, fatigue weighing heavy in her voice. "They might have some news, but it's not confirmed." "Not confirmed?" Jake echoed, color draining from his cheeks as the hope flickered like a dying candle. "I'm so sorry, honey. I know we are all just waiting." "We need to stay strong," she said, her voice trembling. She looked at Daniel, desperation flaring in her eyes like a distress signal. "Maybe they found something?" Daniel offered, trying to inject a thread of optimism into the dark cloud filling the room. "You mentioned waiting for test results." "True," Mrs. Hargrove replied, her voice gaining a little strength. "But too many tests have been negative, and it's hard not to doubt." Jake's face twisted, a mixture of frustration and despair painted across his small features. "I don't want to doubt," he yelled, his brave veneer cracking slightly. "I just want things to go back to normal." "I know," Daniel said softly, sinking down on the floor near Jake, looking him in the eye. "I understand, buddy. We want that too. But sometimes, when things feel impossible, we find ways to keep hope alive, even when it looks dark. Don't forget about our spaghetti night, okay? That'll be a start." Jake stared at him, blinking slowly. "Will it really help? Will cooking make Mom feel better?" "It might not fix everything," Daniel admitted, "but sharing a meal together can make today a little lighter. Every little moment counts. Just look at that smile you had earlier. It felt real, didn't it?" "Yes, it did," Jake replied, his voice barely a whisper now, full of hesitant courage. But the moment was fleeting, snapped back by reality. "Daniel," Mrs. Hargrove interrupted, her gaze distant. "What if it isn't okay? What if this nightmare just keeps dragging on?" Daniel felt the weight of her fear pressing down on him once again. "What if it does?" he asked gently. "But what if it doesn't? What if something good is just around the corner? You have to have faith that there's something out there waiting for us. We can't just give up now." His voice rose slightly, igniting a small fire of strength in the room. "You're a fighter, Mrs. Hargrove. So is Jake. And you're not alone." For a heartbeat, there was silence, a fragile breath held between them. And then the phone rang again. Daniel jumped to his feet, heart racing as he picked it up from the coffee table. "This is Daniel. Who's calling?" The moment felt heavy, charged with possibility. "Hi, this is Patricia from the hospital," the voice on the other end said with a calm confidence that sent a jolt through him. "I'd like to speak with Mrs. Hargrove." Daniel turned, handing the phone over, sensing something had shifted again. The transformation of the room was palpable, charged with the weight of unspoken words, courage, and a flicker of possibility. He watched as Mrs. Hargrove took the call, her face taut with barely contained hope. What they had been waiting for was here, but what would it reveal? Would this phone call bring good news or deeper fear? As she listened intently, Daniel felt Jake's small hand slipping into his. He squeezed it tight, grounding them both as uncertainty hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to break. What would they learn next? Would this usher in a new chapter filled with light, or pull them deeper into the shadows? Mrs. Hargrove's expression shifted as she listened to the voice on the other end. Daniel studied her face, catching every tiny change. First, her brows knitted tighter, then they relaxed just a bit, releasing a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Thank you, Patricia," she said finally, her voice steadying with purpose. "I appreciate it. I'll hold on to that." The call ended, and she lowered the phone slowly, her fingers lingering on the device as if the answers she craved were still inside. Daniel held his breath, waiting, as Jake's wide eyes searched his mother's face for a clue. "What did they say?" Jake asked, his small voice almost breaking. "They found a possible lead," Mrs. Hargrove replied, the rush of adrenaline in her words matching the rising tide of emotions in the room. "They want to run more tests, but I think they're starting to figure things out. There's hope." "But can they help?" Jake asked, hope igniting in his voice. "I believe they can. It might take time, but they're on it," she answered, clasping her hands over Jake's. Her resolve anchored Daniel too. Relief flooded through him, a warm rush pushing back against the earlier shadows. "That's fantastic news," he said, his voice steady despite the lingering edge of worry. "It's a step forward." She nodded, yet Daniel could see the cracks that still remained. "But how long will it take?" "I don't know how to wait any longer." "How long do you want to wait?" Daniel said gently. "Do you want to cook spaghetti while we wait? Or maybe even make a little pizza? We can make this night special." "Pizza!" Jake shouted, his tiny fist pumping in the air. "We can add all the toppings." Mrs. Hargrove smiled, her lips curving just a bit and breaking some of the weight resting on her shoulders. "All right then. Pizza night it is." They worked as if under a spell. A break from the previous tension filled the room. Daniel and Jake rummaged through cupboards, pulling out ingredients and giggling over mishaps: too much cheese, flour thrown into the air, and tears of laughter mixing with the kitchen chaos. As they rolled out dough and arranged toppings, a little warmth dared to creep back into their hearts. It was like a weight lifting, even if just for that moment. Mrs. Hargrove joined them, leaning into the joy of the simple task, engaging more than she had in days. "I used to make the best pizza when you were little, Jake," she said, a mix of nostalgia tinting her voice. "Let's make the best one ever." He beamed, just as they slid the pizzas into the oven. Another message beeped on Mrs. Hargrove's phone. She picked it up, glancing at the screen. Her face fell, and Daniel felt the room temperature drop again. "What is it?" he asked, concerned. "It's a reminder," she said, voice strained. Of the next doctor's appointment. The pizza smell lingered in the air, mixing with the heaviness that returned. She turned to the oven, but he could see the brief flicker of panic in her eyes. Jake sensed it too. He stepped closer, his small hand reaching for his mom's. "Mom, it's okay. We are here, remember?" Those simple words hung in the air, laced with a powerful truth that cut through. Together, they were stronger. "Yes, we are," she replied, tears dampening her resolve, yet a spark of gratitude danced behind them. "I need to focus on that." Daniel caught her gaze and nodded. "Whatever happened today, we can face it together. Just one step at a time." As they gathered around the kitchen table, waiting for the pizza to bake, Mrs. Hargrove turned her phone off, tucking it away. "We're creating our own circle of hope here." But even with all this warmth, a weight still loomed. Would hope be enough? Could they truly face the unknown that lay ahead? Daniel's heart raced with the uncertainty, yet as he watched the family before him begin to find their footing once more, he held on to the belief that they could manage whatever was thrown their way. And just as they were about to dig into their creations, the phone rang again, this time a different number. Mrs. Hargrove's expression shifted, and Daniel felt the air thicken with tension. "Who is it this time?" he whispered, caught between excitement and dread. Would this call usher in more hope, or would it bring them crashing back to reality? Mrs. Hargrove hesitated, staring at the glowing screen as her heart seemed to pause. Daniel's chest tightened, echoing the concern etched on her features. "I don't know," she murmured, her fingers hesitating above the screen. Jake, sensing the shift again, looked up with wide, innocent eyes. "Can I answer it?" he asked, eager to lighten the mood even as tension hung in the air. "Let us just see who it is first," Mrs. Hargrove replied, taking a breath to steady herself. With trembling hands, she accepted the call, bringing the phone to her ear. "Hello?" she said, her voice wavering slightly. A moment of silence stretched on the other end before an unfamiliar voice chimed in. "Is this Mrs. Hargrove? I hope I'm not interrupting." "No," she replied, surprisingly calm. "This is a bit chaotic, but I'm listening." There was a shuffling sound, then the voice continued, "This is Alex from Riverside Medical Center. I'm calling about Jake. We may have uncovered something important regarding the treatment options available to him." Daniel felt a rush of hope swell in his chest, watching Jake's anticipation grow. Mrs. Hargrove tightened her grip on the phone, her eyes widening. "Can you tell me more?" she urged, moving away from the kitchen counter, seeking some semblance of privacy. As they stepped into the hallway, the voice on the other end unfolded a technical tapestry of information: new trials, recent findings, and a potential pathway that could lead to more serious intervention. Every word wrapped around Mrs. Hargrove like a warm blanket, filling her with a sense of clarity and purpose. "What I'm trying to say is," the voice continued, "Jake is a perfect candidate for a newly approved clinical trial. It's still in the early stages, but it's showing promise like nothing we've seen before." The world around her faded as she processed the news. "Are you saying there's a chance?" she whispered, her pulse racing. "Yes," Alex replied gently. "We think this could significantly improve his situation. Would you be interested in coming in for a consultation?" Her throat constricted, letting tears of joy bubble up that she couldn't hold back. Yes, we would love that," she said, her words tumbling out filled with emotion. Daniel, still in the kitchen, could see her shoulders relax, a smile breaking across her face. Jake gazed up at his mother, his small fingers gripping the edge of the counter in excitement. "Mom? What's happening?" he queried, bouncing on his toes. She turned back, joy and disbelief mingling in her eyes. "There's a trial, Jake. They think it might help you." "Really?" Jake's mouth fell open in astonishment, the warmth of hope washing over him and igniting a spark in his spirit. "Yes. Our next step is to meet the doctor and discuss everything." She knelt down, eyes locking onto Jake's with an intensity that made his small heart race. "We're going to fight this together," Daniel said softly, stepping toward them. The realization of what this could mean, all the possibilities, filled the room. Jake's face lit up, his smile brightening the dim corners of their world. "Can we make more pizza after? We need to celebrate." "Yes, we definitely will," Mrs. Hargrove laughed through her tears. "Pizza and everything we can think of." But just as the hope burgeoned within them, a dark shadow swept across Mrs. Hargrove's eyes once more. A question lingered in the back of her mind: what if they were encouraging a dream that could shatter again? What if the waiting and uncertainty still lay ahead? Her heart raced, balancing the anticipation and the fear that was too familiar. The call ended, but her spirit battled. Daniel noticed, sensing the weight creeping back in. "Hey," he said softly, reaching for her hand. "We'll take this one step at a time." For a moment, that was enough. In that moment, their little bubble of positivity swelled once more, binding them together in tight-knit unity. Just then, a faint rumble echoed from the oven. The pizza was ready, and so was their celebration. But behind the cheers, another worry stirred: would the hope last? Daniel's mind raced with the possibility of tomorrow. Would they be ready to face the challenges that lay ahead, especially with the doctor's appointment looming? As they gathered around the table, laughter mingling with the aroma of freshly baked pizza, Mrs. Hargrove pulled out her notebook, jotting down questions for the meeting. She understood the battle was only just beginning. And as Jake munched on a slice, eyes sparkling with wonder, Daniel caught a glimpse of Mrs. Hargrove's face full of determination. What lay at the end of this path? Would today's sliver of hope lead them into the unknown, or would it bring about something much more profound? Then, just as they raised their slices to toast, the phone rang again. Daniel's breath hitched, an unsettled feeling creeping back. Would this call shatter their moment or layer it with even more complexity? Mrs. Hargrove's heart sank at the sound of the ringing phone. For a brief moment, she wished to silence it, afraid it could pull them back into uncertainty. Yet Daniel, feeling the weight of her anxiousness, lifted the receiver from the table with a resolute nod. "I'll get it," he said, moving toward the living room with a reassuring smile. As he answered, Mrs. Hargrove could see her son, Jake, still tucked into his pizza, blissfully unaware of the heartbeats echoing within the walls around him. She watched Daniel's face carefully, his brow furrowing as he spoke. "Hello?" he said, managing a neutral tone even as his eyes darted to Mrs. Hargrove, who tightened her grip on her pen. There was a pause, and then Daniel's expression shifted from confusion to surprise. "Oh, I see. Yes, I can put you in touch with her." He turned back towards Mrs. Hargrove, holding a finger to his lips for silence. Mrs. Hargrove's heart raced. Who could it be? She gestured for Jake to keep eating, her mind whirling with possibilities. "I'll get her," Daniel said quickly before covering the receiver with his hand. "It's someone from the hospital, I think." Her heart skipped. Relief flooded through her. "Put them on," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Handing her the phone, Daniel stepped aside. "It's Alex again," he said quietly, before stepping back to Jake. "Hello, this is Mrs. Hargrove," she spoke into the phone, taking a breath to steady her racing heart. "Mrs. Hargrove," Alex replied, sounding more urgent this time. "I sincerely apologize for the interruption. I just had some additional details that we couldn't discuss on the last call." Mrs. Hargrove's mind spun. "What is it? Is it about the trial?" "Yes, exactly," Alex said, and she felt urgency drip through the line. "There's been a slight change. We realized there may be another option for Jake, something we overlooked earlier." Mrs. Hargrove's heartbeat quickened. "What do you mean?" "Some recent analysis and feedback have propelled a protocol that could be expedited for his case. We need your consent to get things moving quickly." Her mind raced. This could be the moment they've waited for, the turning point. "Okay, what do I need to do?" Alex explained the details, each word like a glimmer of hope. She made mental notes, her hand flying over the paper. Behind her, Jake and Daniel exchanged glances, sensing her shift in energy. The dim kitchen light now felt warmer, more inviting. The very air around them seemed charged, pulsing with possibility, but suddenly, Alex's tone dimmed. "I must advise you, though, that this requires some necessary risks and commitment. The trial is not a guarantee, and complications can arise." The weight of those words settled heavily on her shoulders. It wasn't just excitement that hung in the air, it was the reality of a journey they had to undertake. "I understand," she replied, swallowing hard. "I want to do what's best for Jake, even if it's difficult." "We're ready." "I appreciate your courage," Alex said. "I will send over the full details right away. Can you be available for another call tomorrow to finalize everything?" "Yes. Just tell me when." After hanging up, Mrs. Hargrove took a second to gather her thoughts. She turned to face Jake, adorned in his pizza sauce and all the innocence of a child. The light in his eyes flickered with an indescribable love and trust in her. "Mom? Are we okay?" he asked, his voice little more than a whisper, as the gravity of her expression caught him. "Yes, we are. More than okay," she assured him, kneeling beside his chair. "But there are some challenges we'll face, tougher than before. But we can do it together, right?" Jake's eyes were wide, filled with a hope and strength that made her heart swell. "Yes, sweetheart," she replied, suddenly feeling lighter. "We can do anything together." Just then, Daniel chimed in, "So, how about we celebrate this step? One more round of pizza for everyone? As they cheered and laughed, the phone buzzed again on the counter, breaking their joyful moment. Mrs. Hargrove glanced at it, and her heart skipped a beat at the unknown number. Lighting up the screen. "Should I answer?" Daniel asked, straightening up, sensing the tension return. Mrs. Hargrove frowned, hesitation stinging her spirit. "Do you think it's more good news or another complication?" He reached for the phone, the smile slipping from his face. Only one way to find out what awaited on the other side. Would this call lean towards their dreams or cast them further into doubt? Daniel hesitated, the phone trembling slightly in his hand. Mrs. Hargrove could see the rapid rise and fall of his chest, the worry etched across his brow. They had just felt a gust of hope, and now the sudden buzzing seemed like thunderclouds rolling back in. "Just answer it," she urged, her voice steady but thick with unspoken fears. "We need to know." He took a deep breath and pressed the button to connect. "Hello?" A moment of silence loomed, then a voice on the other end broke through. "Is this Daniel Hargrove?" Yes. Who's this?" The seriousness in the voice sent a shiver down Mrs. Hargrove's spine. "I'm Patrick Sloan from Brookfield Pharmaceuticals. I was trying to reach Mrs. Hargrove." A knot twisted in her stomach. "I'm here," she said, stepping closer, her heart racing. "Thank you for taking my call," Patrick continued, each word deliberate. "I want to discuss an opportunity involving Jake's case, if we still have your attention." She felt hope flare, but also caution. "What do you mean?" "It's about our upcoming trial. We've been closely monitoring cases like Jake's, and their potential for expanded eligibility." "Eligibility? For what?" She pressed, leaning in, her hands shaking with both excitement and anxiety. "A new medication that we believe could yield better results. It's still in experimental stages, but initial responses look promising." Daniel moved closer, his eyes wide as he caught onto the shift in the energy around them. "Mrs. Hargrove, we're prepared to bring Jake in for evaluation. A spot has opened up that we didn't anticipate. We want you to consider this." They exchanged glances, a silent conversation between them, hope flickering in the reflection of their fears. "What are the risks?" she asked directly, needing clarity. "There are always risks with trials, but this is a calculated opportunity. We believe this could be a breakthrough for Jake." "Breakthrough," she echoed, the word hanging in the air as her heart pounded. "When do we need to decide?" "Soon. Preferably before the end of the week." Daniel squeezed her shoulder, grounding her as a wave of doubt washed over her. "I need time to think," Patrick interjected gently. "I understand, but I have to stress that opportunities like this are limited. If you feel good about moving forward, we can arrange for a team to come meet you tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" The urgency hit her like a cold shower. Her thoughts raced. Could they really do this? It felt like a leap off a cliff into the unknown. "What do you think?" Daniel's voice pulled her back into the moment. Her eyes moved to Jake, who was bouncing in his chair, still blissfully lost in his pizza. But even in his innocence, there lay the heart of their battle, their little champion. "Jake's my priority," she said at last, determination replacing fear. "If there's even a chance." "Then let us meet tomorrow," Daniel encouraged, looking at her with conviction. Patrick spoke again, reassured, "You won't regret this decision, Mrs. Hargrove. I promise to keep you informed every step of the way." Just as she agreed, a raucous laugh erupted from Jake as he spun in his chair. The moment felt surreal, a fragile thread of hope weaving itself tightly around their family. Yet doubt still lingered, thick enough to suffocate. "Good. I'll arrange for my assistant to contact you shortly with the details," Patrick said, relief evident in his tone. "We're rooting for Jake." The line went silent, and she stared at the phone, confronting the tidal wave of emotions rushing through her. "What if it's too late?" she whispered, catching Daniel's eye. "It's never too late, Mom," Jake chimed in, his face smeared with tomato sauce, yet radiating innocence and belief. She looked at him, the warmth in her chest growing alongside the flames of hope and fear. "You really think so, buddy?" "I know so," he replied, smiling as if to dissolve all her worries. But even as she smiled back, a shadow loomed just outside her line of sight. Decisions lay ahead. It was a chance for something greater, yet the stakes had never felt higher. Would they pull through? Would this be their moment to leap forward, or would it hold crushing weight of regret if things went wrong? Just then, a sharp knock echoed at the door, jarring them from their thoughts. Who could that be? Daniel asked, his expression shifting to concern. The door opened slowly, and the silhouette of a familiar face appeared. It was Alex, and he bore an intense look that sent a chill down Mrs. Hargrove's spine. What news did he bring? Had they come to share their fate after all? "Hey, everyone," Alex said as he stepped inside, his tone casual but the urgency was unmistakable in his eyes. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Daniel instinctively stepped forward, eyes sharp with concern. "Not at all. We were just listening to news from the hospital," Mrs. Hargrove finished for him, her heart racing. You have more information?" "Yes. I just got out of a meeting, and I've spoken with the team managing Jake's case. We need to move quickly." Alex's words sliced through the ambiguity of their hope. "There are new developments regarding Jake's eligibility for the upcoming trial." Jake's eyes widened, excitement and apprehension mixing together. "What is it?" he blurted out, bouncing in his seat. "The window for enrollment is narrowing, and we believe we've identified a personalized approach that might truly benefit his situation. But I'll be straightforward with you, this trial might require a deeper commitment than previously discussed." The weight of his words hung heavy. Mrs. Hargrove exchanged glances with Daniel, who nodded slightly. "What do we have to do?" she asked, forcing her heart to calm itself. Alex drew in a breath. "We're scheduled to run comprehensive tests tomorrow morning. If all goes well, you could begin treatment soon after. The potential benefits could be significant, but again, there are inherent risks." "Of course there are risks," Daniel murmured, processing the magnitude of the moment. The stakes had never felt higher. "Don't think about what could go wrong," Jake said, his voice strong and assuring, surprising even himself. "Think about what could go right." Mrs. Hargrove gazed at her son, the bravery he emanated soaking into her. "Okay, I'm in," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "Let us do it." Alex grinned, relieved. "I'll have the team contact you with all the necessary steps. I won't sugarcoat it, there will be challenges, but this could reshape Jake's future. We'll face everything together," Daniel added, looking at Jake with a bittersweet smile. "We've already started building our own kind of hope." As they began discussing logistics with Alex, Daniel noticed something shift. The apartment felt lighter, somehow, as if the shadows had begun to recede. They were no longer just two separate worlds colliding, they were a community experiencing a convergence. The family's laughter echoed more freely now, and the sticky remnants of pizza on Jake's face symbolized so much more than a meal. It represented courage, the need to heal, to rise and fight. Hours later, as night fell outside and the last remnants of daylight clung to the horizon, there was a new serenity in the air. After the intensity of decisions made together, there was a newfound commitment, a shared understanding that they could navigate the tough roads ahead. "Let us make a pact," Jake said, his gaze darting between his mother and Daniel. "Whatever comes our way, we stick together. Promise?" "Promise," they replied in unison, laughter bursting forth to cement their agreement. The next day began early, the familiar anxiety curling around Mrs. Hargrove's heart as she prepared Jake for their big moment. Daniel was there, always there, ready to catch her in every falter. He embraced each of them with the strength of his conviction, guiding them through the day. The testing unit felt like a different world, all the beeping machines and the bright fluorescent lights were overwhelming. Yet, as they walked through the sterile hallways, Daniel's presence made the journey comforting. Together, they were unbreakable. By the end of the day, they were left clutching hope tightly, waiting for results but more prepared than ever before. The road ahead would not be easy, but they had each other to hold on to when the challenges came threatening. And as Mrs. Hargrove and Jake walked out of the hospital, a soft breeze washing over them, the sunlight beamed through the clouds above, a symbol of the new beginning on the horizon. Weeks turned into months, and with every twist and turn, hope transformed into resilience. They navigated treatment schedules as a family. Soon, they were celebrating little victories, getting past tough hurdles, seeing strides forward, rekindling the strength that had once felt out of reach. Jake's laughter filled their apartment, resonating harmoniously with his mother's warm smiles. Pizza nights shifted from a mere distraction to a cherished ritual, bonding them in a comfort that transcended everything. Daniel became a steadfast fixture in their lives, slowly blending into their family. His stories of work and home mirrored their struggles and hopes, creating a tapestry woven tightly with common threads of love and connection. And one day, as Jake stood in front of his school with a heart swollen with pride, he announced, "I want to be an engineer. I'm going to build things that help people, like the doctors helped my mom." That evening, as they gathered around the dinner table, a new kind of warmth seeped in. "To dreams," Daniel proposed, raising his glass, "and the incredible things we can achieve together." "To dreams," Jake exclaimed, the sparkle in his eyes brighter than ever. In that radiant moment, all doubts faded, all losses felt like stepping stones leading them to this moment. Home wasn't just a place on a map, it was where hearts converged in hope, laughter, and love. And as they looked ahead to a future painted with possibilities, Daniel grasped how one misdial could ripple into the lives of many, casting light on avenues once obscured. In the end, they had each other, and that was a foundation strong enough to withstand anything. So if you felt inspired by this journey, by Hope's power, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow together. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this transformation. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this awe-inspiring story. This is the moment to show your support, and together, let us spread hope far and wide.